Hey, Ronnie Jr.
From what I know about you, you are a former fatty. As somebody who's
Yes.
always in that space of losing a ton of weight, gaining a ton of weight, and finding it so hard to keep a mindset that it doesn't really dictate how you do your work. It definitely helps if you feel better about yourself, but it's a really harsh digital space to be not at your best. I want to know about your lifestyle growing up and struggling with your weight, and when you decided or how you decided to change it up, and why.
Yeah, I food was my comfort. My parents had me at such a young age. They had me in high school that I don't think either of them was really ready to be a parent necessarily. And so they didn't know how to be a parent. So I kind of was like in this weird place of like, okay, let me try to figure this out on my own. And so obviously there were a lot of emotional needs that weren't being met. And so I found comfort in food. And to me, eating Hot Pockets and cup of noodles and ramen and anything I can find in the freezer and just like gorging on that made me feel good. It filled whatever void was inside of me that I was hoping to fill. And when I started to get older, when I started to get into like middle school, that's when I had become very heavy and I just wasn't confident. And I had boobs faster than the girls in our class were getting boobs. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, what can we do to fix this? And then I ended up developing a really unhealthy relationship with food and with my body. I had a friend that told me about being bulimic, and I followed in that path, and I struggled with bulimia for many, many years, heavily throughout high school. I was very much big on diet pills and the cycle of binging and purging. And in college, I ended up restricting a lot more and struggled with anorexia and lost a lot of weight. And what it was is in high school, when I first started to lose the weight with all of these unhealthy behaviors that I had developed, I liked the attention that I was getting, and I liked that people were complimenting me for losing weight. Anytime anybody
Wow.
loses weight, people are like, oh, you look so good. And I was like, yeah, I am a bad bitch. I look hot. And so I was like, let me keep this going. It became an addiction, and I wanted to keep losing weight, and I wanted to feel in control of something. So what I was able to control was my weight. And so I kept trying to lose more and more weight to feel like I had some grasp on my life and I loved the attention that I was getting. And then eventually it backfired. And then there was no longer the good attention, but it was like, oh my God, you're so skinny. You're losing so much weight. And I was becoming underweight. And it reached a point where I had gotten really scared when I was in college. And I just kind of looked at my reflection one day and I was like, I'm dying. Like I'm actually seeing the life being sucked out of my body and the life just being sucked out of me, and I'm no longer the person that I know that I am, and I've become a caricature of the person that I used to be, because now I'm performing for people and letting them believe that I'm still the same person when in reality I'm putting on a show, because on the inside I'm physically and emotionally just drained and dying. And I
You're
was like,
putting
I
on a
can't.
you're putting on a show because you don't want anyone to actually question you, see
Right.
you, any of that stuff.
Right. I was, on the inside, I was so just tired and fatigued and drained, but I was performing, and I've always been a performer. So I always knew how to turn it on. And that was becoming exhausting. And once I kind of had that moment with myself, like, okay, you need to do something. So I had secretly checked myself into a treatment center, and I spent about 4 weeks there addressing the issue of bulimia. I'd been clinically diagnosed. I went in for a consultation. They clinically diagnosed me, ended up going in full time and hiding it from everybody in my life. I didn't want anybody to know that I had an issue. I was like, I'll go in, I'll do whatever therapy, I'll do whatever they tell me to do. I'll walk out with my certificate, like I graduated high school, and it'll be good and nobody will ever have to know, and I'll be healed. I'll be cured forever. And that didn't work. And I had to continue to struggle and keep up with therapy and do a lot of education on nutrition and food and really just find a way to like myself. It started with, because I was really overweight and then I was really underweight, and there was never that like internal happiness or that internal like fulfillment within myself. And that's what I really had to search for. So that's what like therapy helped with, in terms of navigating food. I did a lot of education about nutrition and made a lot of lifestyle changes to the point where, I was able to kind of find a healthy balance in my life.
Has that helped you with your podcast today? Because people cut deep on 100 different things. They could talk
Oh
about
my
your
God,
hair. They
yes.
could talk about your, being too big, the most, but they can talk about your weight. because you've already been through this journey, are you pretty good with it, or does the weight conversation still hit deep if it's tacky and if it's ugly and if it's meant to hurt?
Um, I don't think I get my weight picked on very much anymore. I think one, because I'm so open about my struggles with my body and with my weight. And I just, as anybody that struggled with like a serious eating disorder knows that you're always going to have those body image issues. As much as you want to love yourself every single day, as much as you think you have food under control, every day you're going to be facing some sort of insecurities, right? Because that's kind of the world that we live in. And even with myself, I have to watch myself on camera several times a week. That becomes so challenging, and I'm so hypercritical of myself. But when it comes to criticism on the internet, I mean, trust me, if you read it, like I take a lot of criticism.
Yeah, I
take a lot of heat.
I one day went in to write something really nice. You had spoke real candidly about a family issue, a loss, and I just wrote something nice. And I feel like because I'm a podcaster, maybe, or been in radio for so long, that's maybe where I come from. I could be funny and snarky like we all can, but when I saw the comments, they're not all as sweet as mine,
No, I definitely, and here's the thing. I know, listen, I have a show called #NoFilter. I open myself up to criticism, and I've never been shy about that. And I started it from a very young age. I started doing stuff on the internet back when I was like in high school. So I have gotten used to taking criticism and learning how to, I mean, the reality is nobody's ever going to be as harsh to you as you can be to yourself. And the only time you allow criticism to get to you is when there's a true insecurity there. So very rarely does the internet hurt my feelings anymore, because I've dealt with a lot of the shit that they try to throw my way. Yeah. But luckily I don't have too much that is ripped apart about my body or my appearance anymore. And I also feel like I'm very candid about that. So there's nothing that they can throw at me that would be a cheap shot that, would hurt me after everything.